Welcome to Dad Bods and Dumbbells. This next episode that we recorded 4 weeks ago before the New York City Marathon with Matt Choi.
It was an awesome episode. Fantastic.
Awesome episode.
Great interview. Can't wait to show it. But because of current events,
yes,
things
a few
that have
things
happened.
that happened. Unfortunately, Matt Choi was disqualified from the New York City Marathon with a time of 2:57, which was a PR, and then was subsequently banned from the New York City Marathon for life because he had e-bikes, those electronic bikes that go around, filming him because he was documenting, because he documents everything, because he's a creator, of course, documenting his journey at the New York City Marathon. Now, Matt accepted full responsibility. He accepted his punishment. Yeah. And so, as far as we're concerned, Matt did his time, his time for the crime type thing. Yeah. I mean, it's a big no-no to have anything on a course, especially on a major. But, I can see how it happens. It happens. And he got really punished for it. And, I think Matt's a classy guy, and he took it and he said, hey, I accept full responsibility. It was my decision and mine alone. And man, I have a lot of respect for him. The problem I have is what happened after. And now what happened after wasn't Matt's fault. Matt is an influencer. He's very positive in the running community, but the terrible negative comments. You read the outlash of the lashing of people that are looking for likes and comments and trying to pile on Matt.
And just have nothing better to do than shit on somebody who's generally an incredible human being.
He's an incredible human being.
And putting the really great content out for people. So
it was just spewing hate, and it's disgusting. What? And the truth is, I think there's a very popular running influencer that said Matt Choi before the New York City Marathon and after too. He said, to know Matt Choi is to love Matt Choi. Yeah. And I think that rings true, is we support and love Matt. Yeah. He's a friend of mine, and he's allowed me to be a part of a lot of cool events that we got to experience together.
Including just recently the Leadville 100.
Leadville 100. Yeah. I mean, he's a friend. He's my friend for life, and I will support him 100%.
When you do something like that with somebody, you really know who they are.
Yeah.
When they're putting themselves into that situation, and they're relying on the team to support them, and how they treat the team, and how they just live in that space, you really get to know who they are.
Now, the good news is, I think a lot of the people that are big supporters of Matt, are friends of his, have kind of come behind him and said, hey, this is a little crazy, it's a little too much, and especially all the hate and the negative comments. Matt has brought so much positivity to the running community, and from this experience, I thought Matt is only going to become bigger and better because of it. Mm-hmm. That's just his nature, his attitude, and where he's going, even including him still filming the New York City Marathon documentary, but instead of what it was supposed to be, he addressed all of the negative comments. He addressed everything. And I mean, hats off to him. I would have just hidden in a cave for many, many years and never be seen again.
Or at least weeks.
Yeah. Definitely not. And so I felt a lot of it too. But I think a few things to remember. Matt is one of the most positive, kind individuals I've ever known. Mm-hmm. He is exactly who he is in person as he is online. He's just that kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And I've been to many expos and experiences with him where he stops and thanks everybody that stops him, takes pictures with everybody. He is really just a genuinely great guy. And so we love it. We love him. We support him 100%. And I really think because of this interview that we experienced, it's going to be the same if we interviewed him today. Right. Because that's just how he is. But just keep in mind, as you listen to this happened 4 weeks before the New York City Marathon, so there's a lot of stuff that has already happened and already experienced, and those things will not be addressed. The context is before New York City Marathon, but it's a really great interview. I think everybody will enjoy it. So please enjoy, like, subscribe, share, wherever you like to have it, but enjoy this episode. This episode is an interview with a creator, influencer, runner, legend named Matt Choi. Coming from a D1 football program in college, and he found the love of running. Taking his infectious personality to social media, he quickly became a juggernaut in the influencing runner space. He is currently seeking to compete in the 6 marathons known as the World Majors this year. He ran a marathon a month in 2023 and also ran across South Korea as a way to discover and explore his heritage. He is one of the greatest marketers and creators in the influencer space, which has brought him to repping major brands. He also completed a documentary telling the story of his journey of finishing the Leadville 100 in under 25 hours. Please welcome Matt Choi. All right, welcome Matt Choi. Thanks for being here. This is Dad Bods and Dumbbells. We're so glad you chose to come out here. And I think the first question is, do you consider yourself a dad bod or a dumbbell?
I would definitely go dumbbell.
What? Dude, you don't want to be like this? You don't want this type of frame?
I think so, Mitch.
Dude, it's crazy. I mean, how many marathons have you run without a shirt?
I think every single one. I think the only one I didn't run with that I did run a shirt on was probably my 2 first marathons. One was an unsanctioned one on my 26th birthday, and then the Philadelphia Marathon in 2021 were the only 2 races I think I ran with the shirt on. Actually, the first Austin Marathon too. The first 3 races I ever ran were all worn with the shirt, and actually they were long sleeve shirts.
Was it because it was cold?
It was a little chilly.
Yeah.
Well, Mitch keeps talking about how he gets his nipples bleed from the shirt. And I'm like, take the shirt off. And Mitch says,
you don't want to see that. You don't want to see that.
This is the dad bod coming out.
You don't want that dad bod jiggling around.
Dude, there's a couple of people blooding shirts because their nipples are bleeding in Chicago. I'm like,
never wear a light shirt in Chicago.
Never.
I wear a
dark black shirt.
Always. Yeah. That's my goal. So, I mean, that jumps us right into how do you go from being a D1 athlete in football to being a marathon marathon runner?
Yeah, I mean, I think it takes time. I think it takes a level of commitment and discipline to adapt your body to take on more endurance challenges. And I think for me, like I learned so much through football, a lot of it soft skills, right? Around like being disciplined and staying committed to a goal. And I think once I hung up the cleats after I was done playing, I felt like I still had that fire in me. I just wanted to use it in something else. And running kind of became that vehicle during the pandemic. I got inspired by guys like David Goggins and other ultra runners that got into the space, but they hadn't always been ultra runners.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Jesse Itzlers of the world, like real entrepreneurs that just used endurance running as a vehicle to test their limits and to unlearn some limitations in that sense.
So did you ever see yourself being considered running influencer? Like, was that ever the goal from the beginning? Or like, I mean, just how you got here, it's kind of extraordinary.
No, I mean, I never thought that was going to be like the thing, to be honest. I started making content because I wanted to be a personal trainer and I wanted to open up a gym and a facility. But when you're training right before the pandemic and then the pandemic happens, you start realizing that having a gym isn't that sexy, and the overhead expenses and the actual business model isn't that great. It's not that lucrative. So I wanted to then like think about how do I have the leanest business possible, and media was something that required limited employees. I didn't need a lot of people to work for me. I could just do all of it from my phone, and my content then became like the work, right? And in that sense, I saw it as like my mind pivoted. I didn't know at that moment though that I was going to be like a running content creator. I just was like, oh, I'm gonna think of myself as a media company, and I'm gonna just build content and my distribution based on the interest that I had.
Yeah.
And how fast did it take off? Like what?
I mean, it took probably a year really before like I grew any following on TikTok. Is like really where my audience grew first, and that was just me like consuming a lot of Gary Vee. And at that time, he was like shoving down everyone's throat, like get on TikTok, get on TikTok. And at the moment, I didn't really know how to like storytell or build content out on that platform or on any platform. But I was putting up 5-6 videos a day and just random stuff. And it was me at the time training for football. It was training other athletes, and I just was putting in a lot of reps. I didn't really know what I was aiming at, but I just was getting reps in. And no different than when you first get to the gym, like, you know, when you first go to any gym or you start anything, like any hobby, like when you do your first push-up, it sucks. But over time, you keep putting reps in and like you compound that interest, you get a little bit better. And for me, like that then grew to my TikTok grew to like 100K. And I was like, oh, it's not really like the most like organized audience, but like I knew that I had something
Yeah.
Right.
And it was from like some football videos went off, some running stuff went off, some like just random videos. I didn't really know how to like contextualize, but I was like, okay, well, I was able to amass some following.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that didn't even transfer into Instagram yet. So
Yeah.
for me, that was kind of when I first saw like a glimpse of like, oh, there's something here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When was your first like when you got paid for it? Like what was that first, the first big thing that kind of...
Well, the first big thing I got before I even got paid was I got to go to the Boston Marathon in 2021 when it wasn't in April. They pushed it to October because of the pandemic.
Right.
So it was, and I never, like, it still shocks me how much in the game I am now in the running world, because I never went to a marathon growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Like even growing up in New York, like my dad and my mom were not into marathons. So we never witnessed the New York City Marathon, right?
Yeah.
So the Boston Marathon was the first time where I was like, oh, there's like a magnitude to this race. Like people like spend their life dedicating to come and run this race. And I went there on a brand trip with Nordic Track, and I was brought on and 2 other creators, but I was the only one that was unpaid. Basically, I got gifted a treadmill and they paid for all my travel. But that was like the first moment where I got brought on like a trip where I didn't have to pay for any of my travel. And one of the guys that was leading the campaign, he basically said to me, he's like, Matt, after this, you're going to start getting a lot of opportunities. And I didn't really understand what he like meant, but he got to meet me in person and felt my energy. And I think a lot of times with like agencies, when they meet creators, they don't know if the creator is going to be like how they are online.
Yeah.
And no different than any of us, right? Like, you know, someone online and then you meet them in person. Sometimes you get disappointed and sometimes you're like, damn, they're just as dope.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like, I just show up in any room I go to being the same person I am online, being the same person I am at home. And I think for me, like, that's just been it's been my like secret sauce in that sense. And it's just me. And I think even in that moment, I didn't understand what that guy had meant when he said that. But then funny thing is, down the line, that I started getting a bunch of stuff in my inbox of all these brand opportunities. And I started realizing that there's a legit business behind this thing.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. I mean, the first time we met you, me and Bart met you at the same time. We were at that running event.
It was the Jesse.
It was the Jesse Itzler.
And
I was there to see Jesse because I was trying to get him. He's already written a book, but I was trying to meet
Devin.
Yeah, because I'd met him at the Austin Marathon. I was like, man, he needs to write a book. And so that was my main goal. And then I looked to my right. I was like, that's freaking Matt Troy. He's been on my feed for like months now. And so I talked to you and I'm like, man, you're the exact same person in person as you are online. I was like, come to the office. And that was when it kind of struck, was like, man, there's something about this guy. He's special. And then I got to meet your brother and just see what you guys were ultimately going to do in the vision for the future, which included going across South Korea. And there was big, big plans. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about, you go from being a marathon a month in 2023. You're trying to get all 6 majors marathons. Which ones do you not have that you?
Tokyo's the only one I don't have.
And are you going to hit that?
Yeah, I mean, my goal is to be there in March.
Okay.
And that'll kind of complete my my 6 Abbott World Majors. And that is definitely one that, as a place to Tokyo, being a place I've never been to, I'm like obviously really excited to have that opportunity. In the current day, I do not have a spot in that race.
Oh, okay.
But I'm so bullish on the opportunity that, like, come a couple months, like, I will have a spot to run Tokyo. However,
how do you get a spot?
So there's multiple ways you can get a spot. You can just like put your name into the ballot. Where it's just an open ticket where all of us could put our name in, but the chance of you getting it is very slim.
Sure.
Just because all the majors are coveted. Like, there's 50, 60,000 runners at every single one of those races, and everyone wants to run them. So the chance of getting your name in just by doing an entry is very minimal. Another opportunity is to raise money through a charity, where in Tokyo, it's a little bit different, where they basically have like a bidding system where, like, if I want to run for autism, I have to basically put in like a number that I want to raise.
Yeah.
And let's just say like the minimum is like, I think maybe $800. And you have like, but the thing is, if you just put 800, a lot of people are going to put 850,
right,
1200, 1500, whatever it is. So if you don't put in a high enough bid, then you don't get it. Right. And unlike other races like New York or Boston, like, there's set numbers of contribution for certain charities, but Tokyo's the only one that has it kind of like an auction system.
Okay.
And then there's other ways to get in, right? Whether it's through like a brand, whether you're doing something like with like different like destination marathons and stuff like that. So
but you can't qualify, like you can't, isn't Is there no other way to, like, if you got a certain time at the Chicago, that wouldn't qualify you? Or
Correct. So there, and then another way is qualifying.
Okay.
And similar to Boston, New York, and all these other races, like
Right.
if you hit a certain time, they take a portion of those people as well. But like just because you qualify it, sometimes you still don't get in, right? Even Boston this year, 12,000 runners qualified for the Boston Marathon, but didn't get in because now it's getting so competitive. Like there's so many new athletes getting into it. The times are getting faster. The performance from shoes help athletes run faster. So it's right now running's having that moment where, you know, there's an influx of new runners, there's an influx of new athletes, and the technology and the performance in the shoes is now taking like the times at another level in that sense. So it's getting more competitive, but it's also a beautiful thing. It means that there's new people getting into it, which is obviously growing the sport. It's growing the brands, and yeah, at the end of the day, it's generating revenue for every side of it, you know, on the business level.
That's cool. So what are the other 5 majors? I know Chicago, Boston,
New York. Those are the 3 in the States, and then London.
Okay, you've done that one.
I've done London, and then Berlin, and then Tokyo.
Okay.
And then there's talks right now that Sydney will be the 7th world major. And then Cape Town is in the discussion. And then there's also one that they're talking about maybe in China. They haven't announced where it would be, but right now there's 6. But obviously for Abbott as well. And like the thing is, like the world majors is like relatively a newer concept within the past decade, 10 to 15 years, right? And obviously they see how much excitement and energy and the amount of runners that come to these races. So if you're Sydney, if you're Australia, you're like, hey,
a great way to showcase your city too. I mean, you know, like a mini Olympics, you're getting people from all over the world
annually.
And
that's a beautiful thing. And like, obviously domestically for us is be living in the States, like how lucky are we that 3 of them are on our home turf?
Yeah.
But like, if you're someone that lives in Australia, like to come to America, like 3 times a year is a big ask, right? Yeah. So I think it's only fair that like one should be on every continent, to be honest, right? Like just to make it fair for everyone.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So tell me about like all the different accomplishments that you've had. You've done 2 ultras, 2 100-mile races, one being this year, Leadville 100, the hardest ultra marathon in the country, they say, right? In our country. And you ran across South Korea in 2023. You did a marathon a month. What would you say of all the things you've done, like it's one thing that you're like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done?
I mean, the Korea run, just because of the fact that like it's multi-day, is just like it's a different challenge because you have to just keep showing up. Mm-hmm. Like Leadville was very challenging as well, but like there's like light at the end of the tunnel, knowing that after 25 hours, like you just call it. Like you know, like you go one day of suffering, and then the next day, like we all get out, we go get some coffee and like get breakfast the next day. Like there's something that's enlightening about the fact that you can see the end of the tunnel. Mm-hmm. But Korea, like 10 days, 300 miles, which in that sense, a 1/3 of what Leadville is, but then to stretch it out, like even though there's more time to rest and recover, you just like, it's almost like you'd rather just get it, like peel the Band-Aid off, right? It's like a slow burn. Yeah. So in that sense, I would say that one was just more daunting because if you are dealing with some form of injuries, and I was dealing with some injuries after like the 5th, 6th day, and more so just overuse, right? It's like your body's not used to running that distance for that many days. Yeah. So I would say that one was probably like mentally one of the tougher ones, just in the fact that like there's so many moments and there's so much time in between for you to say like, let's just call it. You know, like think about it. Like you actually get to go to sleep, and then you wake up the next day, and then you're kind of like slugging around, and you're like contemplating, like, damn, my foot is like, it's like it doesn't want to move. Like it's like I can't feel my foot. Like there's so much time to just feel sorry for yourself and contemplate stopping. Whereas Leadville, like you come into an aid station, Mitch was their crew chief, and like I'm coming into an aid station for 3 to 5 minutes. And like the thought of stopping is never even a conversation. It's just a matter of like, how do I eat as many calories as possible and then move? So in that sense, like I was able to like, I guess like manage like the emotional ride that Leadville has to offer a little bit better than something that's like taking over a 10-day period.
Yeah.
What was the personal experience like running across Korea and just, you know, kind of connecting with the country of Korea, and you're Korean, and like just going, like just the emotional journey that you went on, just kind of being there and experiencing it in a personal way?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that it's hard to even convey to people because, the parts of Korea that I ran through, most people never see, even people that live in Korea. Like if you live in Seoul, which have 10 million people, same size as New York, like you're not going to go to like 150 miles into the boonies, right? It's basically just farming, right? It's agriculture. Very few people would spend time in those small cities. So for me, my brother, and then 2 other friends of ours that got to go on the trip, like for us to kind of experience it firsthand, and like the amount of love and support that we got from just the like locals that had no idea who we were or what we were doing. And to then see it on foot, where like I always say that it's traveling by foot is one of the best ways to experience a new city. I mean, then there's the concept of then running through a whole country to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, you start to appreciate the smallest things that a country has to offer. And I think for us, like seeing the farming and seeing all the fruits and vegetables that my grandma used to feed me and my brother back when we were super young, and not really understanding like, oh, this isn't really like American stuff, but like now having a further appreciation of like, like why is cabbage and kimchi so popular in Korea? Because it's a very resilient vegetable. Like it can withstand a lot of cold temperatures. It can withstand summer heat. And I think seeing all like the elders that were working in these farms and seeing kind of like not even just the areas my parents grew up in, because they didn't grow up in the farming land, right? Like they grew up outside of Seoul, but to see people that looked like me that were working in the farms, like it was something that it's hard to like really comprehend, right? It's hard to like process in that sense. But I think me and my brother, like we hadn't been back to Korea for 20 years, and we spent most of our time in Seoul. So the opportunity to actually run down it, and for us not even being able to speak that much Korean, like still feeling like there was like this connecting piece to all the locals that we got to interact with, whether it was at the coffee shop as we were getting breakfast before we started running, or as we stopped for meals and stuff. And I think, it was really special just to like get out of our comfort zone. Because I think it's sometimes as Americans, like it's so easy to never leave the States. It's the biggest country in the world. And it's so comfortable to always think that like, like when people come here and they don't speak English, we almost like look down on them. As like, like you're like uneducated. Yeah. But equally for us, when we go there, it's like we can't speak great Korean. So like that feeling of being a foreigner is such a humbling thing. Yeah. And I think the perspective, like the takeaway from that trip was just so much more around like, how awesome it is to see something on foot, but then to also experience those micro moments and conversations that you can't really get if you just stay in your hometown,
I like that. Most people don't leave Texas. You don't have to. You don't have
so many
to.
friends that like, they just got their passport.
Yeah,
and they're like, Matt, I'm ready to like use my passport. I'm like, don't do that thing. 100%.
So I'm going to take this on. So we're talking about fatherhood, fitness, guy stuff. On the fitness tip, because there's a lot of people that get into running, and whether it's IT band, plantar fasciitis, like shin splints, you name it, right? It's all kind of something that is problematic for people that are runners. What are some of the workouts and things that you would advise somebody, whether they're in their 30s or 40s or just starting running, to begin with, to kind of get them to not fall into those traps of getting injured, especially those plaguing injuries that just don't go away?
No, that's a great question. I think there's a couple of things I would say. The first thing would be around the best way to handle recovery that doesn't require that much time. Doing myofascial release, so foam rolling, using lacrosse balls, and like really rolling out your calves and your shins. That would be a great foundational piece. If you begin your running journey and you start to increase your volume, making sure that you're spending 10 to 15 minutes a day doing myofascial release, specifically on the foot and lower calf area. That would probably be like something that requires a $10, $15 commitment, and then just time. I think when it comes to actual like exercises and like strength training, once again, focusing on like lower leg. Yeah. Strengthening the soleus, the bottom part of your calf, and then also the gastroc, which is like the meatier part of the upper calf. Yeah. So a lot of that can happen in 2 ways, like doing it from a seated position and then standing. Doing calf raises is one of the most slept on exercises for runners that I would recommend for anyone, whether they're experienced, intermediate, or beginner, because if your foot cannot handle the load of even doing calf raises,
Right.
it's going to be very difficult to handle the load of running, which is like 4 or 5 times the force of your body weight.
Right.
And
then you're doing that over several miles. And so it's just
correct. And then if you think about half marathon, I mean, we're talking hours, right?
Yeah.
So I think that would be like, first start with myofascial release, then lower foot, calf strengthening and like loading the weight, right? I think people think like, oh, like, but like doing calf raises is boring. It's unsexy. Like you're not going to get a massive pump just doing calf raises.
Right.
It's unsexy, but it's like, that's something that
you brought up seated and standing, because the standing works the gastroc and the seated works the soleus,
which a lot of people deal with Achilles tendonitis, which I have as well. A lot of people have shin splints, which I have as well. And all this is from personal experience, because I've, over the past 5 years, dealt with a lot of these stuff because I didn't know.
Well, so often, like we learn it when we finally get like I just got through over plantar fasciitis from playing basketball, and man, now I'm like the guru of like how to stretch and roll, and I mean, but I never even I just didn't consider all those things. I just take it for granted. You're like, it'll be fine.
I mean, people take like when you're healthy, you take everything for granted, right? I think
when you're young, that's also true.
That too. And I've been fortunate to have a lot of good physical therapists around in my corner over the years, and I secretly enjoy, knock on wood, of getting injured, but I secretly enjoy when like small things do present itself. Because it's an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for me to kind of like recalibrate my system and see like, where are there weaknesses in my body that are causing these things to flare up? And I think a lot of people, when they get through injuries, especially in the running space, especially if you're a creator and you feel like, oh my God, like your life, your business depends on you running.
Right.
I think it gets super easy to get discouraged when you get hurt. And I always flip that on its head, where it's like, when I get hurt, does it suck? Of course. But I also see it as an opportunity to storytell and to convey to my audience, like, hey, like this stuff happens. Like I'm not Superman, even though some people think that I am. Like I deal with a lot of these similar injuries, and over the course of 4 or 5 years, I've now built some tissue tolerance and some resiliency to it. But I still have stuff when that pops up, because if you're training for anything that's challenging, like your body should react in some form or fashion, right? Whether it's a positive or a negative thing. But back to your original question, like the foam rolling, myofascial strength training from like the lower calf and the foot and upper calf region. And I think the last piece would be including plyometrics in your training as a runner, even if it's as simple as doing pogo hops, both feet on the ground, single footed. And that's something that I found that I've tried to keep my like elasticity in my soleus and my calf at a very high rate, just because I found that through football, I kept it. And now I don't want to lose it.
Right.
And if you think about running, like running is basically doing plyometrics for X amount of time.
Right.
Like you're leaving one foot to go to the other. And if you can't do that in a controlled environment in a gym and doing the plyometrics, it's going to be hard to cover the distance of a 10K or a 5K. And then if you go further, it's just asking your body to do so much more. So I would say plyometrics would be like that last piece.
That's great. And one of the things they talk about, like as you get older, is you lose strength and muscle mass, but what actually you lose faster than all that is your ability to create power and explosive response time, and that all relates to plyometrics and just explosive movements. And so people like after 35, like certain percent of the population will never sprint again.
Or jump.
But it's like the more you can keep that, whether you're a runner or not, just like keeping some sort of like plyometric training, can help out.
That's good stuff. I wish I would have known that many, many years ago. I think more than likely from all the stuff you're describing, I think the big thing that kind of pops into my head is there a point where you're just sick of running? It's like, are you kind of like, crap, I created a whole career off of running, is there any sense of dread or discouragement, or is there like, I'm burnout or on this or on that?
I mean, this is a common thing people ask, is like, because like, people, I mean, from the outside, people are like, Matt, like running's your job. And in the moment, like there's definitely major opportunities for my business around that sport. But like, I still don't think that I get paid as a runner. Like I get paid to be a creator first. So I've always said like, I'm a media company first and then I run. I'm a media company back in the day and I was a personal trainer. Like I saw myself as someone that understood how to produce content and how to communicate that to an audience. So to your point, like if I stop wanting to run because I dread it that much, which I currently do not, like I would have some interest in something else. whether that's juggling, cooking, real estate, like whatever it is. And I would still create content around those interests. So in the current state, the reason I love running so much is that I feel like it still is an opportunity for me to be a student. I think no matter how many marathons I've done, every single one of them, I learned something else. I learned something new about who I am, about how to overcome the mental doubt and the insecurities and the uncertainty of finishing a race. And I think for me, like, that's why it's so easy to get obsessed with running, because no matter how good you get, there's always an opportunity to improve. There's always something that you can take away from it. And I think that's very true with actually many hobbies, right? And I think for me, it's like the goalpost just changes, whether it's just me wanting to finish a race, whether it's me setting a very challenging goal of saying, like, can my body handle this extreme pace, or furthering the distance, or whatever it is. And there's so many ways still for me where I feel like I'm still just scratching the surface of what I can do as an athlete, as a runner. And then also, like, I enjoy the opportunity to storytell it from a content perspective in different ways. Like, I do feel like I'm one of the top running creators in this space. I feel like I've paved the way for a lot of people to either replicate my content or, use that as an inspiration for them to start their journey. And I think for me, when I look through my page of content, I like created so many nuances within this one genre, where it's like, I've shown how you can hit a sub-3. I've done ultra distances. I've drank beers at the Boston Marathon. I've shown what you can eat during these races. I've shown the recovery, like all the things, like the strength training components, like, and I still feel like I'm always learning different ways to communicate it. And in that sense, even though I feel like I'm one of the top guys, and whether that's true or not, in my own mind, that's what I feel. I still feel like there's more for me to learn. And in that sense, I guess that's what keeps me from being burnt out or feeling like I don't like what gets me up every single day to wake up and just keep doing it is the fact that, I don't know, I feel like there's ounces of me that I want to always be a student of life. And running allows me to continue to chase that itch, because for a long time when I was in school, like, I was a poor student. I cheated on everything. And I speak on that a lot. And, people think it's like, I don't think that it's funny, or it's nothing that I'm proud about. It's just that I think for a lot of students, like, when you're not interested or stimulated in what you're learning, it's very easy to get bored. It's very easy not to apply yourself. And I think in this season of life, I've kind of missed out on that boat from my early years, and I'm trying to make up almost for time lost.
So, I mean, I think one of the things that I pick up from this is you're kind of drowning out a lot of the noise around you. It's like, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm focused on. How do you deal with the hate? Like negative comments, or, you just did the amazing documentary for Leadville100 on your YouTube. And I read through the comments because that's me. And I'm like, damn, son, man, there's some people that just hate you. Like, how do you deal with that? How do you process that?
I mean, I think I deal with it, one, by being comfortable in my own skin. I think it starts with having a high level of self-awareness and confidence that, like, I didn't make content, or I'm not in this world to please everybody. And I think the more content I put out there, and as my following started to grow, I started realizing that, like, it's hard to please everyone in this world. And the moment you realize that you can't please everyone, no matter who you are, no matter how good of a person you are, no matter how much success you have, no matter how much you give back to charity, no matter what you do, someone's always going to say, I don't believe it. He's full of shit. Oh, he's just doing that just to check the box. Like, there's always going to be some opinion of someone else. But I think for me, I realized that, like, that opinion is not what I feel about myself. So when I see myself in the mirror every single day when I wake up, like, I'm confident that what I'm doing is with the right intent, that who I am is actually who I am when I present myself online or in real life, and that people are going to have everything to say. And I think that's just, like, internally how I deal with it. I think also, like, I also don't let the admiration get to my head either. Like, I go to a marathon and they call me, they give me the goat emoji. They give me so much love and admiration. I also don't think that makes me any better of a human. So I think it's having a balance of not needing the admiration or not hearing the hate, because I think it's so easy when someone starts to grow a following that, like, people start giving you love, and you let that, you almost get high off your own supply of, like, oh, I'm that guy. Like, I don't think I'm shit. Like, I think I'm doing something in the world, but, like, I don't think that because I have a following or because people want to take pictures of me that I'm better or worse than anybody. So I think for me, it's just keeping that even keel. And I think, there's different entrepreneurs I looked up to that I felt like I wanted to emulate their mindset around what success and failure looks like and what criticism and admiration looks like and how to deal with it. And I think definitely stoicism has helped as well. And I think to answer your actual question, I think it's just having enough confidence of knowing who you are and not allowing the opinions of other people to dictate that.
Yeah.
Does it make it great? Thank you for that insight, because that hits me pretty hard too, thinking about all the things that are necessary for you to not only build something and create something, but also put yourself as the forefront of that. You're putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
I think that's what stops a lot of people from doing it. I know it stops me from creating a lot of content because I'm like, I know the person that makes the comment and I know who they are and it hurts my feelings and, all the things, all the excuses as to not. And it's really cool to hear it's not that you don't hear the voices, you just allow them to kind of wash over you. And it's like, hey, I'm focused on what I am meant to do, your goals.
100%.
I think one of the things too that, and you've said it several times, is like you see yourself as a media company. Like you're not saying I'm putting myself out there for people to judge. You're saying I am a media company. I'm putting out content to create, to like further a brand.
Mm-hmm.
So even in just the way you describe what you're doing, your value is it's you've actually put your value here, you as Matt Choi, and then your business out online is almost like maybe subconsciously just slightly separate from who you are, right? Which I think it's a way that you just phrase it kind of naturally. I think that actually, instead of like, I'm going to put myself out there and see what happens. And it's almost like looking for value, looking for validation. This is like, I am a media company. I am doing this. I'm creating content. I am, like growing this brand. Like that's not necessarily Matt Choi. That's your media company, right?
Correct. I mean, and I think about it like often like mainstream media, like, and obviously we're like in a political season right now, but like if you think about mainstream media, like there's admiration and hate everywhere in between,
right?
Whether it's the host, whether it's with the topics that they cover. And similar to like even my content, like I feel like I have Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, like you can compare that to CNN, Fox, and NBC, or CNBC, whatever one wants to use or watch. On every single outlet, there's different channels, there's different shows, there's different hosts. And I think even in my content, I try to emulate that in that sense too, where it's like, I'm going to show you what I eat in a day, and I'm going to do a mile challenge, and I'm going to just show you me running, and then I'm going to show you the highlights of like cheering people on. And like, there's so many like nuances within the framework of what the content's being pushed out under the media company. And I think it does help create a layer of like disconnect from myself as like the personal brand. Now, granted, it is ran through my personal brand and like who I am. And like, that's a major component of it. But to your point, it's like, like the platforms are just a machine.
Yeah.
Right. And you put stuff out there, and then the algorithm has to decide like how worthy of this is to be seen by other eyes. And for me, it's like I get very unattached to the metrics and the vanity stuff when it comes to followers and views, just because I'm in it for the long haul of like, what does this look like down the line?
Yeah.
Right. And I think to what Mitch said earlier, like I'd be lying if like, just because I don't let the opinions of people get to me, it doesn't mean that I enjoy to see. Right. It doesn't. I think as humans, we all have feelings. I have emotions too. Like as much as people are like, nah, you're so positive all the time. I'm like, yeah, like that is who I am. But like, I think anyone would be lying if they said like, who would want to be hated?
Yeah.
Like who wakes up in the morning and says like, yeah, I'm gonna do content today so I can get a negative feed. Like I don't say that either, even as positive as I am. So I think for me, I've just learned to understand that it's just part of the game.
Yeah.
And not to take it too seriously. Because to your point, I've had people come up to me in real life, online. And most times it is always online because people don't have the balls to actually say it.
Yeah.
But when people do, it's like, I actually feel empathy for them.
Yeah.
I feel compassion. I'm like, the fact that you are this hurt, you don't even know who I am, but you feel this type of way. You feel this strongly about something I've posted or the persona I perceive online, that you feel the need to come up to me and explain yourself or to make yourself feel heard. I'm like, I feel bad for that person. I want to help them.
Yeah.
And most times you can't, because they already made their choice, right? But to that point, it's like no one wants to be hated. It's just not allowing that stuff to dictate who you actually are.
Yeah.
You know?
So has the popularity, because I've seen it the year we worked with Nate, the year before in Leadville, and this year in Leadville, you were recognized when, 2 years ago when we did Leadville 2023, we were
Last year.
Last year. You were recognized. People recognized, hey, Matt, I love your content. I saw it and I was asking about it. This year was almost like on steroids, where it was everybody would stop. Everybody would say, hey, everybody would want a picture. With that type of popularity, does your circle like of trust, people around you, have you had, has it had to get smaller of the people you trust, the people you bring in with you, or are you just kind of come on, come all, I keep everybody the same way? Or have you lost friendships, or like I'm thinking interpersonally, like, has it affected any relationships in a negative or positive way where you're like, I can't be around those people anymore because I'm in a different space and whatever, it comes across as, I hope I'm explaining the question right.
Yeah. I think it's natural with anyone that grows out of a different season of life to like gain and lose friendships. I think my circle of trust, it's not necessarily about like the length of time. It's more through action, right? It's more through loyalty. And I think that can be taught. It could be not taught. That could be gained and learned in a quick time, in a short amount of time, or for a long amount of time.
Yeah.
Like I would say someone like Nate Boyer is like somewhere in that circle, but I don't know Nate for a long period of time.
Yeah.
I don't know Nate for extended years, or have had like numerous conversations where I feel like, oh, like Nate's like my best friend. And I wouldn't say that Nate's my best friend, but I would say Nate's one of those guys that I would call if I needed something.
Yeah.
If I needed to be able to execute a race, if I needed to do something specifically around how me and Nate built our relationship.
Yeah.
And granted, I have friends from my high school that I'm not maybe as close with because I just am not in contact with them as much, or our interests have changed because we're just in different seasons of life. It's not that I have like lost love for them or they're not in my inner circle. It's just that I'm not going to ask my buddy Jared, who's like one of my best friends from high school, to come and pace me for after my ultra marathon because he just had a kid. Like we're just in different seasons of life. So I think it's just a matter of the context of the situation. Now granted, like, obviously when I'm first meeting people, there's always moments of like, of course, a lot of people would want to enter my circle. To have them in, I need to build some level of trust, and there needs to be some form of action that I'm like, this person, I feel like they can take on that role, or I feel like I trust them to do X, Y, and Z. And I think someone like Griffin's a great example. Yeah, I haven't known Griffin for a long time, but he's the type of person that's like a yes guy. Yeah, he's willing to do the dirty work. He's willing to do things that most people that I have known for years wouldn't want to do. And I think when you start to play around in this space, sometimes like some of the closest people I've gotten to know now, I've gotten to know through running. And I always say that like, it's hard for me to judge a friendship based on how many miles I have with them, but I'd be lying if there's not a closer connection with people that I've shared a lot of miles with. Yeah. Like I shared 38 miles with Nate Boyer. Yeah. Most people that know Nate for years would probably never have been able to say that. And I knew him for 2 times before that 38 miles.
Dude, it's crazy. Yeah.
So there's moments like that where when you see people in these adverse and resilient moments, you almost learn the best and worst of who people are. Yeah. And I feel like because running in ultra marathons and these crazy long distance races, they require people to get out of their comfort zone, and you start to see how people respond to that stuff. Yeah. So I think for me, to answer your question, like have certain relationships change, have some certain friendships come and go for sure. And it's not like love lost. It's just that we're just in different seasons, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't think it's no hard feelings. It's just, obviously it's just contextual. Like there's certain things that certain people could add value in and certain people can. And that's how the cookie crumbles.
Is there any moment of being like people coming into your circle, trying to come into your circle that they're just trying to use your influence? They're just trying to gain. Is there anybody, does that happen a lot, or what is that?
I mean, I'm sure it does, but like, for me, I think I'm very protective as well of like understanding, like there's this word in Korean called nunchi, which just means like, it basically means to have like a 2 cents of foresight and feeling energy from someone, and trying to almost like, just all body language and just feeling someone's energy and like what their intent truly is. And I think for me, I'm, that radar in my mind and heart and soul is very strong. Yeah. And I can just feel when someone's like, they're either desperate or they are trying to kind of leverage what I've already built. And when that happens, like I'm understanding of it. I just try to keep my distance, and I try not to be rude about it. It's just like, yeah, like I'm not gonna open up my doors or open up my circles to just like welcome anyone, right?
Right.
But I think when people show up as who they are, and they are trying to, add value in a certain situation, like I'm more than willing to help, and I'm very open to it. So I think that's, it's happened.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's bad or good. I just think it's how humans operate.
Right.
In the sense that, like it obviously for someone, if they feel like they can bring value, maybe some people just don't know how to sell it or pitch themselves, so that it comes across as like, oh, I'm just going to use Matt. Matt's going to be my ticket to go to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And, I think it is kind of how business works in a sense too. It's not the smartest way to go about doing business, because if it's not authentic, if it's not organic, then there's going to be friction. So for me, like when I feel those moments of friction, if there's even a level of doubt, I just know that it's probably not the right fit. Yeah. That could be with friends. Yeah. It could be with brands. It could be with dollars, right? All those things. And it's got to feel right in my heart from any situation for me to be like, yo, let's do that,
But it's probably come from on their standpoint, it's probably coming from a place where they don't feel like they're bringing enough value to you, but they want to get something back from they're trying to get you to give them something that they're not really bringing anything to the table in return.
Correct. And I think,
but that's their issue too. It doesn't have to stress you out, which is
and I mean,
cool.
It really does. Like, it's funny. Like, I'm such a calm person. Like, people see me out because when I'm out at marathons, like I always say, like, the marathon's like the Super Bowl for me. And like, people ask me, like, Matt, like, do you get bombarded like on day-to-day life? I'm like, really? No. Like, especially in Austin, like, I'm super chill. Like, I'm super introverted. Like, I don't really, like, most of the time I don't leave my house. But like, obviously at marathons, like Chicago, like New York, these races, like, it's almost like being an A-list actor in Hollywood. When I go to a race, like, yeah, it's hard to like make it through the expo without stopping hundreds of times.
Yeah.
right.
And in those heightened moments where most of my audience is, right? Like at New York, Chicago, most of my audience is there.
Yeah.
People that
absolutely
either follow me, support me, or you can just see a video.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be at that race because it's a world major.
Yeah.
And when I'm at those moments, like, it's just heightened, and like the noise and the stimulations at a much grander scale. But day to day, like, I'm not like living like Justin Bieber where I can't step out the house. I can step out the house and be a normal dude.
Yeah.
I'm a normal ass.
I've actually seen you run like 7 a.m. going downtown to train people, and I'll see you like on Congress, like sitting there waiting for the light to turn green. And you're just by yourself, shirt off, just earphones in, just hitting your run because it's 100 degrees that day, and you got to you're there at 7 a.m. or whatever to beat the heat or whatever. But like, you don't have a herd of people chasing after you.
Not at all.
Just doing your thing.
And like, and I love that about Austin too, because it's like, to your point, like you have to get up. Like I just don't want to run in the peak daylight. And it's just like, you get done in the morning, and some people may honk and just say what's up, but like, it's super chill. It's like low key. It's my time to just be alone. And then it prepares me for the moments when I'm at the majors.
All right, so you're about to turn 30.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a big milestone. You've just gone through the kind of the big decade of your 20s and lived it up. What are you thinking about? What's what's kind of on the horizon for you? Maybe not something specific, but just kind of things that you're processing as you're looking toward your 30s.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I feel like I've learned a ton over the past couple of years of just like myself personally, and like, whether it's business or finance or understanding like how to plan for the long term. Because truly, like, even how I think about, my business, everything I do is always like, what's the 10, 20, 30, what does this look like down the line? And I think, it's no different than an investment strategy or how to treat your 100-mile race. Like, it's so easy to get high off like, oh, you hit a check mark, you hit you hit mile 5, mile 10, or you hit 100,000 followers. Like, I think for me now, I've been in the game long enough to understand, like, all right, what got me to this point to now take it to the next level, like, it's probably going to look a little bit different. And my strategies are going to look a little bit different. Like, I'm not going to be able to do what worked in year 1 in year 6. So I'm looking a lot at like, how do I implement different systems, or, how do I come up with different, maybe products that are outside of just Matt Choi as the brand? Because ultimately, like, in a couple of years, if I have a family or if I have kids starting like soon, like, and I'm a bachelor still, but like, if my life can change pivotally in the next 3 to 5, and to then not feel like I'm obligated to make content every single day, like how do I create a business or an infrastructure where I'm not going to need to do that? So those are some stuff that are on my mind. And I think, media is going a lot of places now. And like, I think with the advancement of AI and technology, there's going to be a lot of opportunities and moments to leverage how much tech is going to be a major component of furthering content creators, but also this media landscape. So I think to answer your question, I think it's a mix of, like what does an actual business look like that I want to start and or be a part of? And, that could also mean, having pieces of companies versus a whole pie of something. Right. And I think that's even how I've structured some of my deals now. It's like, how do I play for the long term? It's like, like how do I get equity of some of these businesses that I really believe in for the potential that they might sell in the next 5 or 10 years to then set me up even longer term. So, obviously people are like, Matt, how do you make money? I'm like, well, I work with brands, I do brand partnerships, but then there's certain brands that I really believe in that I'm convicted that I'm like, they might be something. And granted, they might be nothing.
Right.
But the chance of it could really be a beneficial play down the line.
Right. Yeah. Instead of looking for just the partnership paycheck or, hey, give me a promo code, I'll put it out. Let's think differently. How I believe in what you're doing. Let's go in and help you grow their brand.
That's actually
something.
Yeah, because long-term rise, right? You want pieces of companies, right? No different than real estate, right? It's you want to own buildings, you want to own homes.
Yeah.
And I think for me right now, because I built leverage in distribution and content and understanding how to market, how do I attach my face to a brand that needs help on that end? Because that's the expertise that I built.
Right.
I haven't built the expertise when it comes to operations, when it comes to manufacturing, when it comes to stuff that doesn't excite me. So I think now I'm sitting in a spot where I can better leverage and negotiate different terms on a deal where maybe 2 years ago I couldn't.
Yeah.
I would just have to ask for a retainer, have to ask for cash on a affiliate deal.
Yeah.
And I think that's something where even as a creator, you have to start planning out, what does it look like if you want to stop creating? And I think for me, it's I almost see it as almost like a small venture firm, right? Where it's you're betting on these operators, you're betting on a product that really can maybe take off. And, the fact that I can somewhat control the fact that I could slap my face on it and be like, hey, this is a product I believe in.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's been something that I've been thinking about a lot of. And the more private equity and VC friends that I have, when I have conversations like this with them, I put my learning cap on so much because I'm like, can you just think I'm just a creator? And I've never had a manager. I've negotiated all my deals and it's been really exciting for me to also learn from how they are able to, what they look at in a certain deal or what they look at from a startup company and seeing does this company have legs? Would a Nike buy them? Would a tech company buy them? And all those conversations where, a couple of years ago, I'd be go over my head. All of these guys. But those are some stuff I'm thinking.
That's awesome.
I love that. So what's the next big event, next big challenge that you have coming up?
I'm going to be in New York City for the marathon. I think High Rocks is something I'm really been excited about. I think that's been a fun event / workout and run that I don't know. High Rocks excites me because I feel like my body frame and my running base translates really well into that sport.
Yeah.
That's going to be in Chicago in November, but I think in the springtime, my next big goal is I really want to go out and rip a fast marathon time. I think right now I have a 2:57 PB, which is pretty solid, but I haven't really tried to beat that time in the past 2 years. And I think I've now I have the confidence that I can shave that down significantly.
What are you looking
I want to go 2:45.
Dang.
I want to shave that by 10, 12 minutes. And I feel I can do that. I have the capacity to do that. It's just going to take a level of focus and training, and no different than people were shocked at my Leadville time. And to me, I wasn't surprised just because I understood the work that I put in, and also just the grittiness that I have when it comes to being in the pain cave. It's funny. My buddy, I have a good buddy. His name's Jonah. He's a mad scientist almost, but he looks at all the science and the data behind running and volume and training load. And
he's the analytics
guy. And I remember there was a conversation. He's gonna love this because he really drove me a lot. I'm not gonna lie. When I was training for Leadville, I was in New York one weekend, and I was kind of telling him how I was training, my approach to Leadville training and all that stuff. And he didn't tell me in person, but he told a mutual friend of ours, and he was like, I don't think Matt's taking Leadville like that seriously. He was like, I don't think Matt's going to finish. And then my buddy Tyler told me that. And I said, fuck Jonah. I don't mean to curse. And I said, F science. I said, sometimes you can't measure how much of a dog or how much grit someone actually has, because in the moments of suffering, you can peel yourself out of it. You can push through, and there's different things that you can't ever predict based on a data point. And it's funny because at mile 99 of Leadville, and we were coming up at 24 hours and 45 minutes, and I said, F Jonah. I said, F science. I said, that's not everything. Because you can't measure someone's heart or their will. And I think for me, like, you know, that's always been something I've always put my hat on, because like even for marathon training, like, you know, it's so tactical, right? It's very technical. Like you can almost predict your time based on how training's gone.
Sure.
But I actually disagree with that. Because I always tell people, I'm like, you never know what happens on that given day. You know, it could be the perfect weather.
That's good.
You could just have that, you know, you ate the right thing, or you just felt right. Like you never can predict how much like the emotional side of this sport and this activity can take you. Right. And I think that's just something I always think about.
And fucking adrenaline.
I agree.
Dude, you've got hundreds of thousands of people cheering you on.
You can't replicate that.
You can't train that way.
100%.
Right. And it's just crazy.
It's crazy. And I think, you know, it's funny because Jonah, like he wanted like a crazy PR at Chicago. He ran in Chicago. And he wanted like 245, but he ended up getting like 258 because he blew up. And it's funny. He even told my buddy Tyler, he's like, I have to go back to the drawing board and see like what happened. But like, sometimes when you overanalyze and think that everything's going to go perfect based on how you thought of it in training, it's kind of like, I think about like Rocky. Drago trained.
David Goggins. I mean, like, I have a 10-year-old and I'll show him like little Goggins clips, because I just think, because Goggins is the anti-science.
100%.
Like he is exactly what you're talking about. He's all heart, all guts,
100%.
Just spit and vinegar, just like I'm like, and then, you know, so there's that side too that a lot of us need more of. Right. And I love that, because
dude, it's funny you say that. I appreciate you saying that, because Goggins was one of the first softwares that I downloaded. And I always speak about software as like, you know, we're programmed, like all of us are programs in a sense. And the things that we consume, the knowledge that we go seek, like that becomes part of who we are. And like David Goggins was one of the first people I started to consume when I got into this space. And to your exact point, I feel like I've consumed so much of him that like I've ingrained that framework of like, fuck what people have to say. Like you can't question my level of sacrifice and will and grittiness to get through this pain, because that's something you can't measure. And to that exact point, I think that's why he's transformed so many people's lives, because like even if you take 1% of what Goggins has to say, what that can do for someone's life is exponential.
Absolutely.
And I think to that exact point, how do you measure that?
Well, it reframes pain.
100%.
So people, like, you know, they avoid pain, but even in a run, I mean, you see with kids, like, you know, my legs are burning. Like, it's like they're assuming that the pain that they're feeling, or anybody's feeling, is somehow negative. And if you frame it like, oh, this is not,
this is where it starts.
Goggins like, this is 33%. I'm not even close, right? But this is where it starts. Like, just that is that is the difference between just kind of the layman runner and somebody who's like going for, you know, to find out what their true potential is.
Correct.
And I think most of us aren't even touching what we could potentially do, you know? So I love the challenge. I love your story. It's been awesome getting to know you over the last couple of years. It was awesome to see you just struggle through Leadville, but in reality, I've never seen someone so happy. When you were coming down, everybody was like, but you pumped us up when we were crewing for you. And there was never a doubt in our minds. I was like, Matt's got this. The moment you stepped on that line, I was like, he's got this. And I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of what you built. I think you got huge. I mean, the future's big. It's even bigger than what you can imagine. And I'm thankful that I've had a small piece of being able to see it in action, so that when you're, you know, when you're huge, when you're much, much bigger, you're going to be able, I can be able to say, you know, I was with that. I'm the reason that guy's huge. So, well, I appreciate you, Matt, taking the time to come out and be a part of Dad Bods and Dumbbells, even though you are not a dad bod or a dummy. So I appreciate you being a part of it. Good luck to you at Hydrox. Is that Hydrox?
Hyrox.
Hyrox. This has been Dad Bods and Dumbbells. Thanks for listening.